I remember the
Hello.
evening she first mentioned the party. Erica, my wife of 9 years, sat at the kitchen table scrolling through her phone while I cleaned up after dinner. Her friend Clara was hosting what Erica called a little get-together, but I knew Clara's parties were anything but that. They had a reputation for spiraling into wild, uninhibited chaos. Something about the mention of that party made my stomach churn. "Clara's throwing this thing on Friday," Erica began casually, her tone deliberately light. "Should be fun. I think I'm going to go." I turned off the faucet, drying my hands on a towel. "I don't think that's a good idea," I said, keeping my voice measured. "Those parties aren't exactly your scene anymore, are they?" She rolled her eyes and sighed. A rehearsed response she'd perfected in recent months. "Oh, come on, Ethan. It's not a big deal. Just a few hours to catch up with friends. What's the harm?" The harm. I couldn't put it into words right then, but I felt it gnawing at me. Erica had been distant lately. There were subtle changes I couldn't ignore. Longer hours spent working late, her sudden obsession with her appearance, and how she seemed glued to her phone, laughing at messages I wasn't privy to. And now this party? It felt like just another step away from me. "I don't feel good about this," I said firmly. "Why don't we stay in? Watch a movie, spend some time together?" Her expression hardened, her voice turning sharp. "Ethan, you can't control me. I'm going." End of discussion. The look in her eyes wasn't unfamiliar. It was the same defiance she'd shown when we first met, one of the things I'd fallen for back then, but now it felt like a wall I couldn't climb. "Fine," I said after a long pause, though every fiber of my being screamed at me not to. "Do what you want." And that's exactly what she did. Friday evening came too quickly. Erica was radiant, dressed in a red dress that hugged her figure, her makeup meticulous. She looked like a stranger to me. She didn't even glance back as she left, her heels clicking confidently on the pavement. I spent the night pacing the house. My phone sat beside me on the couch, but no messages came. Midnight passed, then 1, then 2. I gave up waiting and climbed into bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to convince myself I was overreacting. At 6 a.m., the sound of the front door jolted me awake. Erica staggered inside, her hair disheveled, makeup smeared, and the smell of alcohol clinging to her. "Where the hell have you been?" I demanded, my voice louder than I intended. "At Clara's," she slurred, barely meeting my eyes. "I crashed there." "What's the big deal?" "The big deal? You didn't call or text." "I was worried sick, Erica." She shrugged, brushing past me. "I didn't think I needed to check in with you every 5 minutes. I'm not a child." Her indifference stung. But what stung more was how she avoided my gaze, how she moved past me like I wasn't even there. Something had shifted. Erica had left the house one person and returned as someone I no longer recognized. In the days that followed, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had happened that night, something she wasn't telling me. I asked her outright if there was anything she needed to say, but she scoffed and changed the subject. Her dismissiveness only fueled my suspicions. That's when I started noticing the signs I'd been blind to before. The way she kept her phone close, her sudden late-night showers, the muted guilt in her eyes when I caught her staring at nothing. And then there were the whispers I heard from mutual friends about what really happened at Clara's parties. One evening, I couldn't take it anymore. While Erica was in the shower, I picked up her phone. I hated myself for it, but I needed answers. What I found was worse than I ever imagined. Messages from an unknown number, flirtatious exchanges, mentions of the party, and then photos. Photos that made me feel like the truth was staring me in the face. That night at the party wasn't just a night out. It was a betrayal. I put the phone down and sat there, trembling with rage, betrayal, and an overwhelming sense of loss. Erica wasn't just hiding something. She was hiding who she had become. This was only the beginning. I didn't confront her immediately. Instead, I planned my next move carefully, knowing that this betrayal wasn't just the end of our marriage. It was the beginning of my reckoning. After finding the messages, I sat with the weight of what I now knew. I didn't sleep that night, my mind racing through every memory of the past few months, piecing together the subtle shifts in Erica's behavior. The laughter at her phone, the way she turned away when I walked into her room, the sudden influx of new lingerie she never wore around me. Each detail felt like a punch to the gut, but I stayed silent. I needed to be strategic. Storming into an argument fueled by raw emotion wouldn't get me what I needed. Erica was the kind of person who could spin anything in her favor. If I confronted her without proof or a plan, she'd twist it until I felt like the one in the wrong. The next morning, she acted as though everything was fine. She cooked breakfast, humming softly, and even asked about my plans for the weekend. Her performance was flawless, but I saw through it now. Every laugh, every smile. It was all a facade. I decided to gather more evidence. I wasn't just looking for closure. I needed a foundation for what I knew would come next. A week later, Erica left the house for another girls' night out. She claimed it was with her usual group of friends, but I didn't trust her anymore. As soon as her car pulled out of the driveway, I was in action. I checked her computer, her tablet, and even sifted through receipts and credit card statements. It was as though every clue had been screaming at me, but I'd ignored them in the name of trust. The messages on her tablet confirmed my worst fears. They detailed plans to meet someone named Nick, the same unknown number from her phone. There were mentions of rendezvous points, hotels, parking lots, even Clara's house. My stomach churned reading them. There was no mistaking it now. Erica had been lying to me for months. The next day, I casually brought up Clara in conversation, gauging Erica's reaction. "You haven't mentioned Clara much lately," I said, sipping my coffee. "How's she doing?" Erica hesitated for a fraction of a second, her eyes darting away before she smiled. "She's good. Same as always. We've just been busy, you know?" I nodded, letting her lie hang in the air. I didn't push. I wanted her to believe I was still in the dark. That night, I took it a step further. I tracked her location using the family phone plan, a feature she'd forgotten I had access to. When she told me she was going to meet friends at a bar across town, her phone pinged at a hotel instead. My jaw tightened as I watched the little, on the map, remain stationary for over 2 hours. When she returned home, she smelled of expensive cologne and cheap lies. "How was the bar?" I asked casually. She hesitated, her face briefly betraying her surprise before she recovered. "Oh, it was fine. Nothing exciting." I forced a smile, though my stomach churned. Her web of deceit was becoming more elaborate, and I knew I couldn't hold back much longer. But I also couldn't confront her without understanding the full extent of her betrayal. Over the next few days, I continued to gather evidence. I became a man possessed, combing through phone logs, checking deleted messages, even discreetly following her one afternoon when she claimed to be running errands. My heart pounded as I watched her car pull into the same hotel parking lot from a distance. Minutes later, a man I recognized from her phone's photos walked up to her car, got in, and the two drove off together. I snapped pictures with my phone, each one a dagger to my chest. But I didn't stop there. I followed them to the same park where Erica and I used to go for walks. Seeing her laughing and holding another man's hand in the very spot where we'd once made memories together felt like a cruel parody of our life. When I got home, I sat at the dining table staring at the evidence I'd collected. Screenshots, text logs, photos. It was undeniable now. She wasn't just cheating. She was living a separate life, one where I was a footnote. That evening, Erica curled up next to me on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She made small talk about work, asking about my day as though nothing had changed. It took everything in me to stay calm, to keep playing along. "I was thinking we could take a trip soon," I said, trying to sound enthusiastic. "Maybe somewhere warm? It's been ages since we went on vacation together." She smiled faintly but didn't look up from her phone. "Maybe. Work's been crazy though. I'll check my schedule." Her disinterest stung, but I kept my expression neutral. "I'll look into some options," I said lightly, though I had no intention of planning anything. Over the next week, I began laying the groundwork for what came next. I opened a separate bank account, redirected my paycheck, and spoke with a lawyer. I gathered every piece of evidence I'd collected, from text messages to photos, and handed it over. My lawyer assured me I had a strong case, especially given Erica's blatant infidelity. I was angry, yes, but I was also determined. Erica thought she was untouchable, that she could carry on her affair without consequences. But she was wrong. This wasn't just about the betrayal anymore. It was about taking back control of my life. As I sat in the lawyer's office, finalizing the details of my plan, I felt a sense of clarity for the first time in months. Erica had no idea what was coming, and I intended to keep it that way. The day I decided to confront Erica, I came home earlier than usual. Her car wasn't in the driveway, and the house was eerily quiet. It gave me the perfect opportunity to finalize my plan. I placed a folder on the kitchen table, the same table where we'd shared countless meals and conversations over the years. Only now, it held the evidence that would shatter our marriage. An hour later, I heard the familiar sound of her heels on the porch. The door opened, and Erica walked in, her face lighting up with an automatic smile that froze the moment she saw me sitting there, waiting. "Hey," she said, her tone wary. "You're home early. Sit down," I said evenly, gesturing to the chair across from me. She hesitated, her eyes darting to the folder on the table. "What's going on?" "Sit down." There must have been something in my voice because she obeyed without another word, perching on the edge of the chair like a nervous schoolgirl. I slid the folder across to her, watching as her fingers hovered over it before finally flipping it open. Her face paled as she flipped through the photos, the text message screenshots, and the GPS records. For a moment, she just stared, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "I can explain," she stammered. "Explain what?" I snapped, my voice rising for the first time. "Explain how you lied to my face, night after night? How you threw away 9 years of marriage for? What, Erica? Some guy you met at a party?" Tears filled her eyes, but I felt nothing. Not pity, not sadness, just a cold, consuming anger. "It was a mistake," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I was lonely. You've been so distant. Don't you dare put this on me, a life for us. While you were sneaking around behind my back, I was trying to hold us together." She broke down then, sobbing into her hands, but her tears didn't move me. If anything, they disgusted me. They weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of self-pity. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she cried. "I'll end it, Ethan. I'll do anything to fix this." I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms. "It's too late, Erica. You didn't just make a mistake. You made a choice. Over and over again. And now, you're going to face the consequences." I didn't give her time to respond. I stood, grabbed my keys, and walked out of the house, leaving her sobbing at the kitchen table. That was the last time I saw her in our home. Over the next few weeks, I moved out and into a small apartment on the other side of town. The divorce proceedings were swift and brutal. Thanks to the evidence I'd collected, I came out of it with the majority of our shared assets. Erica didn't even contest it. She knew she had no leg to stand on. Part 4. Life after the fall, but the end of our marriage didn't bring the closure I'd hoped for. The betrayal lingered like a wound that refused to heal. I threw myself into work, trying to rebuild my life from the ground up, but everywhere I went, I saw reminders of the life we'd shared and the lies she'd told. Friends and family rallied around me, offering their support, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd been left adrift. Erica moved in with her lover, or so I heard through mutual acquaintances. I tried not to care, but every mention of her felt like salt in the wound. My new apartment felt like a prison at first. The silence was suffocating, a constant reminder of everything I'd lost. Nights were the worst, the loneliness pressing down on me like a weight I couldn't escape. But slowly, I started to find my footing. I joined a local hiking group, rediscovering a love for the outdoors that I'd long neglected. I started therapy, working through the anger and bitterness that had taken root in my heart. It was a long, painful process, but it was necessary. One evening, months after the divorce was finalized, I received an email from Erica. It was long and rambling, filled with apologies and pleas for forgiveness. She claimed she was going to therapy, that she was working on herself, that she wanted to make things right. I deleted it without responding. Forgiveness wasn't something I could offer. Not yet. Maybe not ever. What she'd done had broken something in me, something I wasn't sure could ever be repaired. Life didn't magically get better after the divorce. I struggled financially at first, downsizing my lifestyle and cutting back on expenses. The loneliness never fully went away, but I learned to live with it. I focused on myself, on healing, on growth, on rediscovering who I was outside of my marriage. And though the scars of Erica's betrayal would always be with me, I vowed never to let them define me. I'd been shattered, but I wasn't broken. Not entirely. Erica had made her choices, and I was finally making mine. To move forward, to rebuild, to live, even if the road ahead was far from easy. Goodbye.